A gasp ripples through the crowd as adventurers realize the platinum-ranked fighter before them is retreating from something far greater. A towering dragon looms over the battlefield, forcing even seasoned warriors to admit that raw strength alone cannot withstand such an overwhelming ancient threat. Keita steps calmly into the chaos, apologizing for intruding, unaware that his sudden appearance leaves the frightened adventurers stunned and confused. The adventurers demand answers, questioning where this strange old man came from and why he shows no fear standing before the monstrous dragon. The dragon roars, vowing to reduce every human present to ashes, while the terrified group scrambles backward, certain their deaths have finally arrived. Without hesitation, Keita grips his blade tightly and lunges forward, moving with a speed and precision no ordinary salaryman should ever possess. His strike lands with impossible force, leaving the dragon staggering backward as onlookers whisper in disbelief at what they just witnessed unfold. Keita swings again, his makeshift weapon cutting through the creature's defenses effortlessly, treating the legendary beast like nothing more than casual exercise. Among the rubble, Swerin and her companions marvel at the satisfying sound of victory, watching Keita walk away as though nothing extraordinary happened. Back in Tokyo, Keita Sato introduces himself as an average 41-year-old office worker, quietly enduring another stressful day at Adventure Books Publishing. A coworker panics over a canceled event, revealing that their entire plan depended on securing raffle tickets for the popular Dungeon Liver livestream. Keita reflects on how fantasy novels once dominated the industry when he joined, wondering aloud whether those troublesome Dungeon Liver kids caused more chaos. He learns that Dungeon Liver refers to streamers who gain fame broadcasting dungeon adventures, admitting privately that he simply cannot understand their appeal. Outside, a massive screen displays the streamer Swerin, adored by teenagers who call this era the thrilling age of grand adventure. 18 years earlier, dungeons suddenly appeared across the world, forcing humanity to fight monstrous threats it never imagined it would face. Defeated monsters left behind powerful items, and these artifacts transformed ordinary citizens into adventurers, practically turning everyday people into heroes overnight. Raised among constant danger, dungeon-native youths now treat exploration as entertainment, streaming their dangerous raids online as casually as any trend. Struggling to compete, Keita's publishing company shifted towards selling merchandise for popular streamers, though fantasy magazine sales continued declining regardless. As his shift ends, a coworker teases Keita for leaving early, muttering under her breath that his routine departure seems utterly boring. Told the company is short-handed, Keita reluctantly agrees to help apologize for the Dungeon Liver scandal, despite his obvious reluctance to comply. Madoka Ukai insists it is simply her job, feeling guilty about dragging her senior coworker into another exhausting round of streamer apologies. Keita Sato reassures her that working together makes the burden lighter, admitting privately that a little bowing costs him almost nothing. Ukai stammers nervously, addressing him as senpai while clearly grateful someone finally treats her thankless role with genuine respect and kindness. Walking home afterward, Keita reminisces about better days when the pay was higher and late nights felt less draining than now. A massive livestream screen glows across the city, drawing crowds who gather eagerly, phones raised, waiting for the broadcast to begin. The streamer Swerin greets her audience with practiced enthusiasm, while Doom Production advertises recruiting new streamers chasing viral fame and fortune. Passing a beef bowl shop, Keita freezes as sudden magical flames erupt nearby, disrupting the quiet evening with reckless streaming chaos. A young streamer shrugs off concerns about legality, admitting his subscriber count matters more than safety, mocking salaryman life as pathetic. Bystanders mock Keita silently, comparing him to a lost corporate drone, insisting adventuring now seems far more respectable than office work. Arriving home late again, Keita quietly reflects that everyone else has their own life, just as he clings to his. His niece, 16-year-old Hikaria Mahare, greets him warmly from the couch, phone in hand, happy to see him finally home. She offers to heat up cheese curry, revealing casually that she is his older sister's daughter living together as family now. After his parents passed away, Keita lived alone until his sister returned home with Hikari following her difficult divorce. He silently worries about her revealing outfits, though social awkwardness keeps him from ever mentioning it directly to his niece. Hikari thanks him for finishing dinner, smiling proudly, insisting his enthusiastic appetite makes all her cooking effort feel worthwhile. Keita admits food remains his only real joy, prompting Hikari to jokingly call his gloomy attitude toward life rather depressing. She prepares star-shaped carrots specifically for him, expressing affection despite his unreadable, expressionless reaction to her thoughtful cooking gesture. Hikari mentions that Dungeon Liver just went live, casually asking if her dry, uninterested uncle even knows the popular streaming group. Meanwhile, the streamers publicly refuse to apologize for their scandal, arguing boldly that Japan simply cannot handle their outspoken honesty. Yon member fumes further, insisting nobody got hurt, questioning why the public reaction feels so disproportionately angry and unreasonable. Hikari scrolls through her phone, complaining she cannot understand why anyone finds these arrogant streamers impressive, mocking their exaggerated confidence and smugness. Keita counts under his breath, startling Hikari before announcing he is heading out unusually late, leaving her curious about his sudden departure. He insists he simply feels restless and needs to move around, prompting Hikari to reluctantly agree, telling him to stay safe outside. Walking silently through Shinjuku's east exit, Keita disappears into the crowded night streets, his expression unreadable beneath the city lights. Hikari mutters to herself that her uncle is genuinely strange, unable to explain his mysterious nighttime habits or unpredictable behavior lately. While doing his laundry, she once discovered an unbelievably rare item hidden inside his shirt pocket. Deepening her growing suspicion further, after having it appraised, she learns it could only come from an SSS-level dungeon, convincing her something serious is happening tonight. Elsewhere, protesters gather outside a sealed dungeon entrance, demanding it be freed, insisting the future belongs to everyday adventurers instead. Following him secretly, Hikari watches her uncle enter an ordinary-looking batting center, confused why this location seems so unremarkable. A counter. He registers under the name Nindo Hikari, paying for 1 hour, unaware his niece is watching closely. Hidden nearby, Hikari discovers his registered skill listed as Stealth SSS, realizing her uncle possesses abilities far beyond ordinary humans. Inside, everything initially looks completely normal, just batting cages numbered for different speeds, nothing suggesting anything supernatural or dangerous. Suddenly, a hidden door reveals violent flashing light, startling both Hikari and nearby vending machines with its intense otherworldly glow. Stunned, Hikari realizes this ordinary batting center secretly hides a real dungeon entrance, and her uncle has already vanished inside. Checking the display, she discovers this dungeon rates at level 140, far beyond anything normal adventurers dare attempt. Hikari worries whether her uncle can survive such danger, though her own stealth skill keeps her safely hidden while following. Deep inside, Keita encounters a strange creature blocking the corridor, immediately identified by Hikari as a dangerous diamond frog. She explains its rock-hard skin makes it essentially immune to attacks, calling the wall-blending monster genuinely unsettling and creepy. Panicking, Hikari assumes her uncle, dressed as an ordinary office worker, will surely be killed within seconds by the creature. She screams a warning as the frog lunges forward, though Keita's calm expression suggests he remains completely unfazed by danger. Keita swings his bat with brutal force, shattering the creature instantly, releasing years of buried frustration into one devastating, satisfying strike. He sighs contentedly at the sound, startling Hikari, who watches nervously, unsure why her uncle suddenly seems so genuinely energized tonight. Onlookers marvel that even President Owari struggled against a diamond frog, yet this stranger defeated one with barely any visible effort. More frogs emerge from the shadows, since diamond frogs always hunt together in packs, proving the fight remains far from finished. Keita swings again, muttering that this strike is for his terrible boss, channeling everyday workplace frustration directly into brutal combat. He continues furiously, dedicating another swing towards selfish dungeon streamers who never consider how much trouble they cause others. Watching from hiding, Hikari wonders if he has secretly been releasing stress this entire time. Considering whether streaming this could go viral, comments flood in immediately as viewers question why an ordinary suited man with no team is fighting dangerous lower-floor monsters alone. Viewers demand he reveal his identity, joking about wanting Swiren slimed instead, surprised a newcomer reached such dangerous depths immediately. Suddenly, a massive diamond boa appears, an SSS-ranked boss monster, leaving Hikari terrified as she screams her uncle's name in panic. The colossal serpent towers menacingly above him, its scaled body coiling through shattered ruins, radiating overwhelming, terrifying predatory power. Keita raises his bat instinctively, deflecting the creature's strike with a resounding clang, refusing to back down from the confrontation. The battlefield shakes violently as both combatants clash again, debris scattering everywhere while the massive boa presses its relentless assault. Viewers panic when the stream cuts out momentarily, joking morbidly that he is probably dead, demanding someone finally focus the camera properly. The feed returns suddenly, revealing Keita still standing strong, leaving Hikari stunned as chat erupts, wondering what exactly is happening. Gripping his bat tightly, Keita shouts for the boa to bring it on, fully embracing the fight with fierce determination. Hikari watches breathlessly nearby, gripping her phone tightly, overwhelmed by the sheer intensity radiating from her uncle's unexpected transformation. The next morning, a classmate shouts at Shun, assigning him cleanup duty, completely ignoring his obvious reluctance and quiet protest. Another student teases Shun for constantly getting stuck with unwanted chores, watching him accept the dirty work yet again silently. Classmates dismiss his situation casually, assuming he genuinely enjoys the responsibility, unaware of the quiet resentment hidden behind his smile. Keita swings his metal bat with brutal force at the towering dungeon boss, while online streamers mock him for not understanding how live streaming even works, calling him a clueless old man who overreacts to comments he never asked to read. The stream connection drops without warning, leaving Hikari staring at her device in confusion, wondering aloud where the feed disappeared to at the exact moment everything mattered most. Keita roars through gritted teeth and swings again with everything he has, refusing to let the monster's massive body push him backward or slow his relentless attack. Viewers flood the chat with disbelief, arguing that no ordinary man could defeat a boss monster using nothing but a metal bat, dismissing the footage as obvious fake editing. Hikari's phone lights up with notifications, her expression shifting from shock to excitement as she realizes the clip of her uncle is spreading fast online. Keita straightens his tie afterward, blood streaked across his face, smiling faintly as if the fight barely counted as real exertion for him. Hikari cheers upon seeing her subscriber count cross 11,000, already imagining the money pouring in from her uncle's sudden viral fame. A sudden tremor struck the city as a manhole cover burst open behind an unsuspecting man, sending him flying while a girl froze in shock, wondering aloud if it was only an earthquake. Without warning, massive labyrinths tore through the earth in cities across the globe, spreading chaos and destruction, and the world came to know this catastrophe simply as the dungeon catastrophe. 18 years earlier, jagged black spires had erupted from beneath the streets, toppling buildings and forcing terrified civilians to flee as the ground itself seemed to rebel against them. The sudden appearance of these dungeon spires plunged the entire nation of Japan into turmoil, as skyscrapers cracked and crumbled beneath the pressure of the emerging structures. News broadcasts declared Japan doomed, speculating the disaster was some foreign superweapon, while panicked citizens flooded the internet with theories, and the whole world began transforming around this new reality. Back then, 23-year-old Keita Sato was just another Japanese office worker grinding away at his desk, and when the trains halted on the catastrophe's first day, he and his co-workers were stunned to be sent home early. Yet by the very next day, the trains were already running again, and the corporate drones, Keita included, slipped right back into their exhausting daily routines as though nothing had happened at all. Staring blankly at his keyboard, Keita realized he felt too drained to enjoy anything, and only then did he truly understand what it meant to become a tired, unmotivated adult with no energy for hobbies. Determined to reclaim one small piece of himself, Keita walked toward the batting center that night, quietly vowing that today would finally be the day he earned his speed certification. Though people thought it silly for an exhausted man to visit the batting cages after work, Keita refused to give up the one activity that still let him relax and breathe. Gripping the bat tightly with calloused hands, Keita settled into his stance inside the cage, his eyes locked on the pitching machine as the tension in his shoulders finally began easing. As the ball rocketed toward him, Keita swung with practiced focus, certain he could track its exact path, while somewhere behind him a woman's face twisted in sudden, wide-eyed terror. A monstrous creature suddenly burst through the batting center wall in a shower of debris, screeching as panicked witnesses screamed that a monster had appeared right there in the building. The wall exploded inward as the creature crashed through metal and plaster alike, sending Keita sprawling to the ground while his ball rolled harmlessly away amid the falling wreckage. The bloated, grinning monster lunged forward with a piercing shriek, and nearby children scattered in terror, screaming for everyone to run before the creature could kill them all. Annoyed rather than afraid, Keita raised his bat again, muttering that the screaming children were far too loud about the possibility of dying just as he was finally getting into the zone. Narrowing his eyes behind his glasses, Keita forced himself to focus completely, blocking out the surrounding chaos as debris continued raining down across the shattered batting cage. With controlled precision, Keita swung the bat forward, sending the ball rocketing through the destroyed cage and striking something with tremendous, unexpected force amid the wreckage. The bat connected solidly with the creature, identified moments later as a species called metal slug, driving it backward with visible pain etched across its strange, bulbous face. Startled by his own success, Keita watched the creature collapse before cheering wildly, thrilled to discover that defeating it had granted him a massive amount of experience points. Stunned by the certificate in his hands, Keita rushed home to his apartment, shouting excitedly to his cat Nobunaga, that he had somehow earned a genuine home run certificate that night. Behind him lay the wreckage of the shattered batting center, with staff and customers sprawled across the debris, all screaming in confusion about what exactly had just happened inside the building. Morning arrived with his alarm beeping steadily beside his bed, and Keita woke exhausted, realizing his entire body was drenched in sweat from the previous night's chaos. Staring at the achievement certificate framed on his wall, Keita admitted to himself that it sounded ridiculous, but somehow he really had struck a monster while simply trying to hit a baseball. Visiting the labyrinths quietly became his private hobby, nothing more, and Keita told himself that staying the same cautious office worker mattered more than any single lucky victory. One evening he returned home to find his older sister Akari sitting at the table, and he offered her a cup of coffee he had just finished brewing for her. Akari, 2 years older than Keita, and Hikari's mother remarked that his stiff formality felt like a wall between them. Though she accepted the coffee and settled back comfortably, she asked pointedly where he had been the previous night, and Keita stammered nervously, insisting he could no longer speak to her casually now that Hikari was old enough to notice. Panicking internally about being caught sneaking off to bat monsters in the labyrinths, Keita worried what would happen if his secret ever reached his overprotective older sister. Akari revealed she had come home to an empty house and learned that Hikari had been out live-streaming from inside a dungeon at that very late hour. Discussing it further, Keita mentioned that streaming had become the only real income Hikari earned these days, prompting Akari to worry aloud whether such dangerous work was appropriate for a teenager. Glancing at Hikari's channel showing barely over 1,000 subscribers, Keita admitted honestly that the numbers weren't especially impressive, despite everyone assuming her success was guaranteed. Akari confessed she didn't want to become the mother who simply crushed her daughter's dreams, no matter how much the dangerous streaming work frightened her deep down. The next morning, Keita offered to make her something simple for breakfast, but Akari cut him off, insisting bluntly that he needed to be the one who finally stopped Hikari. Straightening his collar with a sly grin, Keita announced he would be heading out, quietly slipping back into his secret nighttime routine, despite his sister's warning. Commuting the next day, Keita overheard coworkers gossiping about a mysterious figure called the Shinjuku Bat, a masked adventurer who wielded nothing but a metal baseball bat. Passersby speculated wildly that this Shinjuku Bat had recklessly dived straight into the lower dungeon levels, with someone noting it was practically his job now to look into it. Riding the crowded train home, Keita silently wondered what kind of person this reckless streamer truly was, unaware the rumors swirling around him described his very own secret self. Morning started as normal, with the office alive in dull greetings and heavy sighs. Turmoil burst soon after another sponsorship issue, tied to the broadcasting case, had come to light. Despite the pressure, one colleague offered one rice pitch, urging the tired woman to rest. Jointly, they sat without a word, enduring the building's shutdowns and the burden of overnight work. The group's plans crumbled. No broadcasters would take the budget. Desperation silently settled across the chamber. A man easily mentioned that his niece had started broadcasting digital not long ago. When questioned about her followers, he hesitantly confessed she only had 1,500, drawing instant dismissal. Elsewhere, a colleague longed for replies from top-tier creators, plainly oblivious of growing talent. Another colleague chimed in with news of a breakout indie broadcaster hitting 10,000 followers overnight. The name was revealed: Shinjuku Club, a solo combatant who defeated a SSS-tier monster live. Diamond Boa's impenetrable defense had swamped even top-tier teams, making it a dreaded challenge. Despite its plated plates, one well-aimed strike to its vulnerable core could bring it down. One team member reeled in shock upon learning Shinjuku Club defeated the monster overnight. Unconcerned, the woman stated it was all coincidence. Dungeon diving was just her private getaway. Elsewhere, the team considered how Dungeon Liver once thrived by exploiting risky spectacles. The manager snapped under strain, demanding a fresh broadcaster at once and cutting off the old team. Unwillingly, the team took more overtime, uncertain how numerous candidates they could even find elsewhere. 2 students respected Shinjuku Bat's growing stream, oblivious of the turmoil behind it. Worry rose about the legality of broadcasting without consent, especially from someone so private. Despite concerns, the girl brushed it off. The woman's uncle wouldn't dare peek at anything trendy. The girls uncovered dark history: the batting center the man frequents was one dungeon disaster site. Now normalized, those gates appeared throughout Shinjuku, easily used by explorers of all levels. What set his gate apart was its direct entry to the deep floors called for lethal risk. Even top-tier parties could be wiped out if they went into without preparation, swamped by the reality. She understood her uncle's life was more unreal than fiction. Her friend proved her of how much her uncle had backed them, asking her secrecy. Though conflicted, The woman hesitated. Closing the stream would mean losing an avalanche of notice. Finally, she accepted to talk to him, but only after joking about turning a money initial. Safeguards were put in place. The system would now mask his features and speech instantly. As if on cue, the woman's mobile buzzed. Her uncle was calling. Hikari happily called her uncle, acting it was casual while her friend observed knowingly. Elsewhere at work, the man canceled evening plans, buried in yet another round of overtime. She questioned if he used GPS, suggesting a deeper worry behind her playful manner. Admitting she missed him, she gently questioned if he'd split his location. Touched, the man accepted if it made her happy. He'd leave it on. Hikari grinned, proud of the woman's clever scheme, declaring the operation a success. She now had a way to track the woman's uncle and even teased a shock stream. Back at class, she questioned aloud what amazing act he'd pull off coming. Elsewhere, explorers near the dungeon lamented missed contracts and a surprising workday in work. The group's troubles worsened. A mysterious powerhouse had just shaken the whole balance. Salt defended the man's aggressive leveling methods, brushing off digital warnings as nonsense. Potato easily went into, wondering aloud if Slain had plans to stream that day. The group floated the idea of crashing the woman's stream for notice and potential clout. But Slain had a bigger vision, something wild sufficient to erase the group's past controversies. He imagined turmoil, a well-known broadcaster, and risk, live on display observed by thousands. Confident and grinning, Slain showed his scheme, boasting over 420,000 followers on Dungeon Liver Stream. Late at night in Tokyo, the metropolis buzzed with digital lights and quiet strain. Sato silently considered on the unfairness at work, eventually voicing his suppressed annoyance. The man moved with a colleague, explaining the load of unpaid overtime and the company's exploitative standards. The man's anger deepened, not at others, but at the order that required free labor. Despite it all, he offered a composed grin, acknowledging her attempt with quiet gratitude. Yukai eagerly offered to treat Sato to ramen as an apology, but the man refused courteously. Raising one hand, Sato cited office policies, wary of eating solo with a female colleague. His abrupt compliment left Yukai shocked, her heart reacting faster than her ideas. He rapidly moved away, relieved he evaded sparking gossip or misunderstandings at the office. Elsewhere, a coin fell for one hourly stay, suggesting at a parallel, quieter transaction. After entering one discreet building, Sato moved down the corridor, unnoticed by the team. Hikari, clad in flashy gear, waited eagerly, prepared to record the woman's uncle's private activities. Summoning the woman's fox-like drone, she activated her concealment tech with confident accuracy. The strong concealment SSS skill enabled her to trail him deep into the dungeon undetected. By transferring the skill to her drone, she intended to capture concealed video without alerting him. Sato abruptly turned, eyes keen, fixing onto something behind him with strong doubt. Hikari, concealed nearby, started to alarm, uncertain if her concealment had actually unsuccessful. A odd sensation swept the area, unsettling both of them as they felt something abnormal. With no notice, her chest pushed against a barrier that strangely gave way like flesh. Puzzled, Sato doubted the odd softness, wondering if it was one monster or something worse. Hikari shook as the probing sensation kept, her speech pleading through nervous gasps. With no notice, a remote section of the dungeon hallway wildly erupted into fragments. Far away, another broadcaster understood too late they had moved into a trap zone. Explorer Swiren panicked, swamped by the abrupt turmoil unfolding around her group. Within seconds, the team was encircled. Swarms of diamond frogs hurried in without pity. Facing the swarm, the team understood even a lone diamond frog was a grave danger. Despite terror spreading, Swiren announced her will to survive with strong determination. Uncertainty burst as an enormous blow broke the ground, worsening the emergency. Broadcasting live, Swiren cried at audience ridiculing her while struggling to stay alive. Elsewhere, her teammates panicked, calling out for assist as frog attacks swamped them. Struggling under strain, Swiren fought to free herself as her teammate wept out for assist. With a desperate chant, she summoned water sorcery, hurling it toward the nearing foes. An enormous blast came next her incantation. The megaton pump detonated with overwhelming force. Haze settled gradually, and the team observed the aftermath unfold with cautious chants. The group's amphibious nature rendered water sorcery almost useless, an obvious but costly oversight. Swiren stood stiff as a slime wrapped tightly around her, leaving her almost paralyzed. Desperation rose, with her limbs restrained and getaway unthinkable. The circumstances escalated rapidly. Abruptly, Sato went into composed and collected, shielding his eyes as he prepared to intervene. A moment later, a slime's pieces splattered across the barrier. His swift strike left onlookers shocked. Encircled by defeated creatures, Sato watched the problem easily. as if he'd only swatted flies. Due to lack of broadcasting consent, the unknown man's features was blurred by AI, hiding his identity from audience. Swiren identified the suited person. Realizing he might be the infamous Shinjuku Club, the man moved forward, leaving the girl behind as he prepared to feature the nearing danger. A minor beast hovered near, its recorder transmitting the live scene to thousands watching from the Shinjuku Club stream. Audience speculated violently as his niece boldly watched, aware her uncle's strength would soon surprise them. Abruptly, her filming drone was destroyed midstream, stirring alarm in the comments. Concealed behind rubble, the woman rejoined another stream, grateful someone had posted a redirect. While others marveled at the man's solo act, viewership rose as the stream redirected. The girl counted each fresh viewer with glee. Without attempt, the man broke his foe's attack, overwhelming it in a lone blow. Wiping the man's brow, the man downplayed the challenge, calling it a mild exercise. Kneeling before him, the girl fought to justify the turmoil the group triggered. Beside a broken, empty chest, the woman demanded the alarm had activated on its own. The trio stood steady, claiming the group were victims caught in the uncertainty. She presented their stream video, pointing out the man's ridiculous power and arms as evidence. Encircled by the group, the man remained quiet, silently processing the circumstances. Doubt lingered in the man's head, but he felt no deception from them. Though identified as the Shinjuku Club, he brushed it off, demanding he was simply a public. Two girls stood near the barrier, lowering the group's guard as the stream finished. They whispered about the man nearby, realizing the man was the infamous Shinjuku Club, who was currently broadcasting live. The man overheard their talk and dreaded they were ridiculing him silently. Seeing the circumstances escalate, he weighed leaving, concerned his aura might attract trouble. The man turned to leave, but the girl called out, trying to stop him. She hesitated, uncertain whether to thank him, but his harsh look discouraged more talk. He compared the circumstances to a cyclist facing a lethal crash, suggesting he merely couldn't look away. Downplaying the act, the man demanded that gratitude was unnecessary, claiming he acted out of guilt. Her annoyance burst, incapable to tolerate his emotionally remote behavior any longer. The others observed, puzzled by the man's manner despite acknowledging his strength. Despite everything, she found herself silently admiring him, surprising the woman's friends. Her ideas lingered on the man's weariness and sheer strength, which left a lasting impression. While she daydreamed, the others panicked. Concerned followers might misinterpret her look elsewhere. Digital audience buzzed with mixed opinions, intrigued about the unknown man's identity. Elsewhere, a girl watching the video grinned, amused by how effortlessly he overlooked affection. The woman paused, thinking on the odd trap they had encountered in the ruins. An explanation sparked in the woman's head. Explorers trained by visualizing a tall for her. The core of that tree was a high-grade concealment skill that permitted her to disappear even in open view. As she advanced, the main skill branched out, giving growth to sub-skills tailored to the woman's growth. One special method used a shinobi-style art that smartly linked with monitoring units. Spotting the ruined chest once more, she triggered her appraisal skill, seeking concealed clues. The analysis showed it as a small-rank broken treasure chest. Audience reacted with uncertainty and interest. Rumors filled the comments, some doubted foul play, while others debated its odd placement and empty contents. Awareness dawned it might be a trap aiming Swiren during the woman's livestream. Acting rapidly, she deployed her Shikigami units to scout the area, fixing onto a nearby foe with assurance. Turmoil burst after a reckless technique triggered a strong boss deep in the dungeon. Far from the battle, one girl scanning live feeds identified known faces. At the dungeon's edge, a tall man briskly moved away while a girl clung to him, pleading to express her gratitude for the man's help. Despite her persistence, he declined to split any contact information. Nearby, two quiet observers observed the uneasy scene unfold. One breathed one sigh of relief. A failed saving operation was accidentally streamed live, revealing the group's mistake abruptly. A person saw the suspicious treasure chest and hurried to alert others. Realizing the danger was near, the group sprang into action. The girl raced ahead, concentrated on the assignment. The woman activated a water-based magic, summoning a circular wave to search the area. Using sonar-like ripples, the woman pinpointed the enemy's location. Observers observed with growing interest as the woman declared the discovery. An enormous torrent erupted from the ground as the girl released water sorcery Great Vortex, engulfing the arena and stunning everyone nearby. As the magic changed the ground and paralyzed enemies, among the shocked group, one girl identified the suited man appearing from the darkness, her uncle covered in unknown and power else. Where Foz fought to get away the overwhelming flood, their movement slowed to a crawl, Annoyance boiled over as one survivor vowed revenge, angry over the turmoil they'd been dragged into. An unknown man appeared from the darkness, his confident steps drawing everyone's notice and doubt. Alarm hit as sorcery circles formed. One of the group cried to attack while a different hesitated. Their magic hit straight, but to their shock, the man stood unshaken, steadily adjusting his glasses. With overwhelming velocity, the man launched forward. Onlookers observed in shock as he moved through the turmoil. He raced across the water's ground, sending swarms and rubble flying. A harsh boss cried commands demanding that work could continue as long as awareness remained. No matter the fatigue, another manager offered ridiculous guidance, claiming that lifting one step before the other drop would let someone to run on water. Recalling those teachings, the suited man raced forward. He burst from the water mid-air, landing straight among a group of shocked foes. Without slowing down, he moved through the damage, dismissing his rival as a weakling. With no notice, a strong strike hit one of the combatants, leaving him shocked and injured. The suited man steadily moved forward and offered a brief apology, unshaken by the around strain. While the group reviewed on him, a different caution that the man's stream was still active. Suspicious of unseen monitoring, one girl deduced that a concealed cameraman with concealment skills was likely nearby. Elsewhere, a defeated group sat without a word, realizing the infamous dungeon lover had been watching all along. The suited man stood silently as accusations flew, the man's composed demeanor clashing with the turmoil he caused. Awareness hit one explorer. It was the same man responsible for his endless overtime back at the office. Strain escalated as the man questioned him, demanding replies with a cold stare. Nervous and defensive, the group denied wrongdoing, trying to workday blame as emotions rushed high. Driven by anger, one of them launched one attack, resolved to teach the old man one lesson. The turmoil kept as another alarm sounded, confirming the group had triggered yet another danger. An argument shattered out, with one hot-headed explorer ridiculing the suited man. Oblivious of the risk ahead, a strange peanut-shaped monster appeared, and the old man prepared to strike with no pause. Trying to cover their tracks, the group stated it was a prank and faulted the false alarm on partnership plans. Dismayed, the man reprimanded them for handling life-dangerous cases like a joke. Desperate and cornered, the group begged for forgiveness, brushing off the group's actions as one harmless prank. With a stern stare, the suited man replied by sending one of them out harsh, teaching a final painful lesson. He moved away satisfied, sensed strangely refreshed despite the wreckage behind him. As the debris settled, the others questioned if things had gone too far, uncertain of their defeated allies' condition. Elsewhere, one girl flushed strongly, totally fascinated by the man's cool and overwhelming aura. At the business department, news grew rapidly about a large explorer controversy. She shared it with her elder colleague, who rejected the topic coldly. The article showed that Dungeon Lover was stripped of her license after being accused of orchestrating harmful acts while broadcasting. Silently, the man reviewed the report and exhaled in relief. The man's identity remained undisclosed, simply as promised. Before he had saw the case, his worried look verified that the streamer's punishment had taken full effect. Strain rose as the inquiry team checked records connecting multiple people to the case. Terror of collateral effects threatened. Elsewhere, one man silently wished to return to his quiet pastimes, dodging more trouble. Appeal was made. One member questioned to keep her role quiet, hoping to get away noticed though uncertain. Others unwillingly accepted, uncertain of her reasons. In return, she neared the man with a private request of her own. At the office, a growing streamer's stream caught notice, sparking jealousy and rumors about possible hires. Annoyance rose as top creators overlooked their proposals, leaving little chance of substituting the shamed dungeon lover. Abruptly, a note appeared. It was from a known features, bright and keen to relate. Caught by shock, he unwillingly took, feeling future problems forming. To his colleagues it glanced like junk. To him, it was something worse, real role. Sato clarified that he used the chat tool for staying in touch with family, trying to minimize its importance. To his shock, his colleague happily confessed she used the same tool and suggested sharing contact information. Behind a forced grin, he panicked inside, unwilling to combine private apps with office life. Elsewhere, she silently rejoiced, having desired this link for some time. Sato let out a quiet sigh, loaded by yet another surprising burden. Just as the uneasy moment reached its height, the department head called for Sato and Akai, giving a surprising getaway. Both employees neared anxiously, feeling strain in the air and uncertainty in the boss's manner. With a grave look, she questioned if a replacement for Dungeon Lover had been secured. Their quiet stated it all. Nothing had progressed and force mounted. Worse, one issue surfaced with the company's flagship publication, adding urgency to the circumstances. Team confronted an emergency and exclusive feature on Dungeon Lover had been scheduled. With merchandise and sponsors prepared to launch, the department head cut through the alarm, urging Ukai to step in. As the publishing team was swamped, the woman instructed Sato to support Ukai in pitching to a large company, Doom Productions. They were tasked with nearing a powerhouse called for high-profile broadcasters and enormous range. Without budget and under strain, the group's skills would now be tested to the limit. Sato glanced to Ukai with quiet determination, placing the responsibility in her hands as the circumstances escalated. Outside, the abrupt task swamped them both, the burden of urgency sinking in fast. At the base of an enormous skyscraper, Sato and his lively colleague prepared for an important business session soon. After they moved into a current meeting chamber and confronted a collected person waiting them. Presenting himself as Kachidoki Kinya, the man showed his history as a past broadcaster and current media manager. Sato replied confidently, stating the man's role as an agent from Adventurer's bookstore. With all parties seated, the discussion for a potential partnership formally started. Ukai stumbled anxiously as Sato pushed her to present the information without pause. Kachidoki moved in, unmoved, asking the value of partnering with a small distribution publication. With a composed look, Sato noted their poor manner, realizing the agreement was never real from the start. Ridiculing their paper-only format, Kachidoki rejected them entirely, calling the session a loss of time. Stiff in place, Ukai shook, swamped by the harsh refusal and force. Kachidoki abruptly shifted manner, giving Ukai an opportunity to join an industry incident with leaders and broadcasters. Though, his praise took a worse turn, breaking workplace limits and making Ukai uneasy. He pushed more, suggesting a private lodging session while acting not to be forceful. Ukai hesitated, but Sato moved in, closing the session decisively and getting ready to leave. As they left, Sato proved him everything could be seen in today's hit world. Sato steadily clarified the problem's top broadcasters' features, from controversies to overwhelming endurance, leaving Kachidoki uneasy. He kept sharing the dubious fad of lodging parties organized by shamed creators aiming unaware people. With an aware manner, Sato suggested at a coming expose Faye, notice Kachidoki without identifying names. Kachidoki's look firmed as the man silently rejected the implication of being exposed. With no pause, Sato left with Ukai, declaring their connections in old press still held power. As Sato and Ukai moved away, Kachidoki leapt forward and grabbed Sato's shoulder. Angry, shouting in anger, he boasted about his past attention and threatened violence. Without emotion, Sato quickly responded to the grab, leaving Kachidoki shocked. The manager clutched the man's chest in pain while Sato coolly finished the negotiations. Unshaken by the outburst, with dignity intact, the pair moved off, leaving the defeated man behind in quiet humiliation. Outside the building, Sato steadily verified that the agreement was formally terminated, despite Ukai's gratitude. Large content gap, and both anticipated effects from the group's editor. As they moved without a word, Sato pondered their coming technique while Ukai tried to stay positive. Back inside, Kachidoki gazed tensely out the window, hand clenched in annoyance and shock. Incapable to contain himself, he smashed a nearby object in anger, stunning his colleague. Kachidoki smashed an object in his hold, making alarm as gore spilled across the ground. Turning to the man's subordinate, he mocked him with twisted pride, asserting his dominance through terror. With no pause, he shut the man once more, declaring him a disposable punching bag he would fix later. Elsewhere, Sato and Ukai silently left, unnoticed by the turmoil left behind. As they moved, Ukai repeated the man's name in wonder. Sato from Adventurer's bookstore, angry and embarrassed. Kachidoki made a revenge-driven call, vowing payback against Sato's quiet resistance. Gossip about Sato's private method had started circulating through the business. A young woman sought clarity from the woman's senior. Though lacking evidence, the man silently confessed Sato was indeed doing something behind the scenes. It was revealed that Sato had used charm to manipulate meetings, seducing women from the business one after a different. The woman hesitated, conflicted yet intrigued, and anxiously neared Sato in open blushing. She questioned him to grab a drink, uncertain of the woman's own reasons. The woman's heart pounded as she understood. She had actually questioned Sato out for a drink. Sato kindly reassured her, explaining that protecting colleagues was merely part of the man's responsibilities. Still nervous, she jumped to wild conclusions about the man's evening plans. Grinning, he clarified that he had dinner plans with the man's sister and niece who demanded on it. Later, the woman's comment about the man's warm nature prompted him to laugh, brushing off the idea of fatherhood with quiet humility. Sato understood it was getting late and headed toward the terminal, planning to meet the man's family for dinner. The man's sister had chosen a beer hall, which perfectly suited the man's taste. Despite the humid weather, the man welcomed the idea of a harsh drink pushing through the evening rush. The man doubted the venue, wondering if it was ideal with Hikari present. Resolved, he grinned and chose to enjoy the night. By then set on ordering a king-size beer, as Sato stood in the packed train, someone abruptly grabbed his shoulder and commanded him to get off at the coming stop. A young woman nearby appeared puzzled, oblivious of what was happening around the woman's in one flash. Someone captured one image of Sato catching him mid-look. A man showed the video, accusing Sato while boasting about recording everything for his growing viewers. The circumstances escalated as the accuser stated misconduct and demanded on taking Sato to the police. Sato defended himself steadily, showing both the man's hands were full and denying the accusation made against him. His accuser, full of confidence, flaunted his digital aura and required Sato's identification, claiming connections with local police. Despite the group forming, Sato maintained composure as the woman demanded no harassment had occurred. Still, the accuser pushed on, shoving the man's mobile toward her, asking for her judgment. She rejected the man's behavior, demanding he delete the footage, but he brushed her off in self-righteous resistance. The woman's look hardened as she rose, frustrated with the circumstances, plainly fed up with the accuser's behavior. Elsewhere, Sato texted the man's family to explain the pause, disheartened by the needless conflict. Strain rose when the accuser started shouting, causing a worried passenger to intervene and appeal composed. Trying to determine the circumstances, Sato questioned the woman to accompany him to speak with the terminal team. She accepted decisively, resolved to assist plane up the misunderstanding and settle things properly. As the train halted, the accuser escaped, leaving Sato behind to features a flood of hostile assumptions from onlookers. In the group, people whispered accusations, snapping photos and labeling him one danger without evidence swamped. Sato understood everyone's reaction was too coordinated, too sharp, to be natural. Doubt turned to clarity that wasn't random. It was one trap, cautiously staged. The man weighed pursuit but held back, prioritizing composed over confrontation. An aggressive colleague grabbed Sato, certain the turmoil could solely mean one specific source of trouble. Outside the terminal, both Sato and the woman considered on the case, feeling it escalated far too rapidly. She confessed having a doubt about being targeted, connecting it to something from the woman's past. Sato shared one similar idea, identifying a grudge might be behind the false accusation. Concerned it could escalate, she hesitated, uncertain what step to take coming. As she held up the woman's mobile with a flashy cosplay wallpaper, she suggested sharing contact information. Sato hesitated, visibly uneasy, causing her to assume the man wasn't interested. Finally, he relented and accepted, while elsewhere, his niece questioned what fresh problem he had wandered into. It was revealed that her claim about their mother coming was a cover. She'd intended it all solo. With a resolved grin, she announced she would treat her uncle that evening as a reward. An whole desk flooded with food and drinks, freshly prepared and sparkling under the lights. The man's niece lifted their glasses for a toast celebrating their minor reunion. The man took a long sip, slamming the glass down with a satisfied grin as the strain melted away. The girl grinned, pleased to see the man's mood lifted after numerous stressful days, grateful for her care. The man silently considered on the comfort of family and rest. While sipping the man's drink, he easily questioned about his sister's absence, noticing the girl hesitating. With a soft grin, she confessed the dinner was her idea, a minor gesture of appreciation. He rose intrigued about his sister's private job, surprised even her daughter understood little about it. Outside, the night framed the group's quiet moment inside the warm restaurant. He questioned about class, softly changing the conversation to lighter, more known ground. Sato questioned how life had been, and the girl replied brightly, sharing her joy in newfound intent. Though she grinned, she secretly continued quiet about her viral broadcasting success built on his name. Abrupt buzz from Sato's mobile interrupted their dinner. It was a call from the man's department head. At initial, he hesitated, acting not to notice the call as she reprimanded him playfully. Finally stepping outside, Sato took the call, oblivious of the workday about to unfold. A stern woman addressed Sato through the mobile, sending a stunning accusation with no pause. Puzzled, Sato questioned for clarification. Incapable to process what he just heard, the caller clarified that a footage had surfaced connecting him to a groping case on a train. A young team member assured them that no identifiable information had been showed. Still, the circumstances escalated rapidly, with gossip spreading faster than anyone anticipated. News of the accusation grew digital, reaching the company's social press with requests for a reply. On the call, Sato's boss cut through the turmoil asking who might be behind the setup. The woman reassured him, confident the man would never act recklessly, guided more by caution than impulse. Hearing the woman's faith in him, Sato couldn't assist but grin at how well she understood him. Jointly, they started piecing things jointly, suspecting a concealed force manipulating the circumstances from behind. The name behind the scheme was revealed: Kanaya Katsudoki, one smug manager from Doom Productions. Sato's boss couldn't skin the woman's disgust, outraged by the industry's corruption and dirty methods. Despite the turmoil, the woman remained collected, assuring that the victim had been contacted and groundwork was laid. Sato questioned about the effects, and the woman reaffirmed the company's trust in him. Elsewhere, her assistant fiercely condemned those exploiting justice for private gain, standing decisively by Sato's team before closing the call. The boss proved Sato it was a family night and pushed him to enjoy it. Hanging up, he firmed his hold on the mobile, proved once more that the evidence was flimsy. The footage circulating digital was vague and anonymous, cautiously crafted to avoid lawful effects. Despite its weakness, open reactions had by then turned toxic, feeding on false impressions. Annoyance boiled over as Sato understood the attack had stolen precious time with the man's loved ones. Sato came back to the desk, clothes torn and aura strong, leaving his niece in shock. Despite his arrival, he brushed it off easily, claiming it was nothing grave. She felt otherwise, softly causing him to be truthful instead of hiding behind quiet. He evaded more explanation, choosing instead to drown the strain in a long drink. As they left, Sato confessed there had been a work issue, but reassured her the man be fine. The dinner finished, Sato set money on the desk, demanding on spending despite his niece's protest. He moved off without break, leaving behind a shocked girl carrying the change he left for her. Elsewhere, a well-liked stream teased an abrupt live dungeon raid incident that night. Digital talk erupted, while the girl made plans to trail up with her uncle. One session remained before the surprising stream would go live, strains silently building in the history. Sato paid his normal fee at the shop, but his look carried a steady refusal towards something unspoken. News swirled of corrupt agencies and broadcasters manipulating reality for private gain. Resolved, Sato went into the dungeon to release his anger through combat. A hideous structure stood where a nightclub once was, now warped into a dungeon called the Incubus Palace. Gossip grew that the dungeon fused with one forgotten red light district, creating a distorted space. It resembled the infamous Kabukicho, yet twisted outside awareness. The disaster hit quickly. Turmoil burst as creatures rose into the roads. Innumerable people perished, and the area's danger rank escalated. Beneath the ground, hordes of tentacled demons writhed. Drawn by base instincts, the den pulsed with vile force. Two enormous figures appeared, one showing remnants of human clothes. The group's forms were abnormal, shaped by desire, prepared to attack anything in sight. Sato firmed his hold on the club, steeling himself as he moved into the warp zone yet once more. Abruptly, a hideous demon rushed at him, its twisted form screaming with chaotic force. It shrieked incomprehensibly and leapt forward without restraint. With no pause, Sato swept with full force. The man's body moved automatically, responding to the creature's erratic advance like a seasoned slugger facing a wild pitch. The contact ordered the monster flying, its body bursting into pieces midair. A bright blast came next, lighting up the night. With a relaxed position, Sato rested the club on the man's shoulder. The man's smirk came back. Seconds like those brought an odd sense of satisfaction. Years of suppressed annoyance had hardened Sato's determination. Memories of office abuse and injustice filled back as he confronted the enormous forms ahead. He glared at the foes with no pause, declaring quiet vengeance. No sympathy remained for creatures that mirrored the corruption the man endured. Elsewhere, information surfaced sharing the enemy's true nature. These demons of kinks could workday shape, exploiting the desires or fears of the group's targets. Observing from afar, a concealed girl studied the danger. Her concealment power guarded her, but even she understood this dungeon was outside reckless. Behind the woman's wrist crept close. In this dungeon, gender offered no pity. Safety meant win, or suffering the same fate regardless of who you were. A heavy strike launched from Sato's position aimed squarely at the incoming monster. Anger guided his form as he recalled the injustice of packed rail lines. The hideous beast took the full contact, its body rupturing from the strike. Sato's eyes burned with intent, unflinching as the demon fell. Above, the turmoil unfolded on display. Audience observed in wonder as commentary filled the comments. Even those once afraid now voiced relief. From one secure distance, Hikari grinned. The man's strength gave others confidence. His aura solo made this hellish place feel survivable. Standing tall, club resting on the man's shoulder, Sato remained quiet, the display filled with support, donations, and quiet admiration. Encircled by the pieces of defeated creatures, Sato paused. Oblivious, his niece rejoiced a minor win. Her stream had eventually hit monetization. In her head, an illusion took shape, quitting her job, building a viewers, and broadcasting alongside her uncle forever. Back in the zone, Sato's eyes caught one flash in the sky. Something rare was descending fast. From the haze appeared one spear embedded in the ground with force. The around demons hesitated, feeling its power. Without wasting time, Sato raced forward. Waves burst as he stated the weapon, prepared for whatever came coming. Hikari gazed at the display in shock as the live stream abruptly cut off. Alarm took hold, the comments filled with uncertainty. No one understood what occurred to her uncle. Elsewhere, an unknown spear hovered in the aftermath of the crash, embedded deep in the arena. Sato turned to see its origin, solely to witness a young warrior descending, the woman's weapon glowing with power and intent. With no notice, she hurried toward him. The woman's eyes were keen, and her position was unmistakably hostile. Iron struck as her spear hit. Sato stood steady, surprised but not backing down. A fresh challenger had went into. Sato stopped the abrupt thrust, surprised by the force behind it. The man called out to stop her, feeling a misunderstanding. Fixing eyes for an instant, both hesitated. Her guarded look softened when she saw the man's human features. In one instant, the strain dissolved. The girl dropped the woman's weapon, bowing her head in apology. They stood among scattered foes as the girl clarified the woman's mistake. Sato took the woman's apology, urging caution in such a risky place. With a minor speech, she confessed the area was empty. The woman's aura now meant something more was about to unfold. Hikari remained concealed under concealment. Relieved the before-feed cut didn't reveal her. The drone damage had gone unnoticed. Elsewhere, Sato verified his doubt. The newcomer was Sina, a well-known solo attacker and broadcaster, called to millions across the net. Sina, an unknown dungeon broadcaster called a spear dancer, stands at the height of attention. With unmatched skill and style, she dominates solo, her identity concealed from followers. Despite the woman's attention, Sina avoids monetization. The woman's income comes solely from music and merchandise. Even among the turmoil of monster-infested zones, discovering one peculiar scene, Sina realizes it's viral possible. The woman's instincts as an entertainer kick in as the woman prepares to capture it. Elsewhere, one suited man reacts in wonder. With Sena joining Swiren, the man's uncle's status rises quickly. The group's livestream begins. Worried, Sena debates her coming technique. Official video could lead to trouble. The stream restarted amid lingering haze, sharing Sena standing near her uncle, who appeared disoriented but unharmed. Her worry rose as she surveyed the area. Awareness swept across audience as followers saw her pixelated person on display. Thrill rose, and one shocked observer screamed her name in shock. Sense an eerie sensation, the suited man glanced around, uncertain if he was being observed or imagining things. Doubt flashed behind his composed look. A moment before, Sina had mistaken someone for one danger. She apologized sincerely, blaming the woman's poor eyesight and the chaotic forming. One nearby guild, explorers browsed arms. While most arms could be reproduced, some dungeon relics remained unthinkable to replicate with current technology. Sina's identity was eventually verified, a called performer from Doom Productions. The man watched the woman's closely, noting the fabled lance in her hands, the burst lance. Ji-Fei Bolg. When doubted about the woman's poor vision, Sena gave a vague excuse. Despite appearing uncertain, her internal ideas showed the reality her eyesight was perfectly fine. With abrupt accuracy, the woman launched into action. Her spear danced across the zone, hitting foes with velocity and control that betrayed her before claims. A moment of quiet came next. Sena's look hardened as something within the woman shifted. The arena burst. Jointly, the woman and the suited man moved in sync, cutting down enemies in a blur of coordinated strikes. Sparks flew as Sena and the suited man released crushing strikes. Audience observed, shocked by the abrupt escalation. In the narrow lane, the duo fought jointly. Blades and force cut through the turmoil, forcing foes to retreat under their relentless force. With no pause, the man lifted his weapon. Determination settled in the man's eyes, sharing that he was prepared to go all in. Sena's look shifted as the woman felt the intensity. Something about his position made her hesitate, if only for an instant. Their arms collided once more. The sheer force trembled the arena, each strike ringing the power behind their strong determination. Sina narrowed her eyes at the club, feeling no magical force. Its regular arrival puzzled the woman in the heat of combat. The man easily lifted the club, explaining its common origin. Despite its lack of magic, it had effectively stopped a fabled weapon. He showed his method came from late-night training, mimicking scenes from his preferred kung fu movies during pauses at work. Sina understood the reality. Neither of them had been entirely truthful, but unusual methods plainly succeeded. Sato steadily assessed the circumstances, noting the girl's habit of closing the woman's eyes mid-battle. Her delay made her incapable to distinguish allies from foes rather than ignore it. The man chose to intervene, suspecting a deeper reason behind the woman's actions. The woman's reliance on sight left the woman vulnerable in close quarters. Later, with the man's blade resting on his shoulder, Sato considered on the casual view others held about death in their world. To numerous, life had become expendable. Still, the towering shadow of death never ceased to unsettle him. The man had seen the trauma firsthand, forms revived, but hearts left broken. She paused, admitting the woman's words might have overstepped, but Sato took the guidance without resentment. Within himself, Sato acknowledged the source of the man's strength. His core power, insightful eye, permitted him to see outside the obvious even when he couldn't physically look. The woman evaluated the skill, realizing it couldn't be rated on any standard scale. Its designation dropped into the unclassified and X-rank power outside measure. When activated, the power elevated her perception, changing her viewpoint to a higher plane. Similar to a third-person perspective in a tactical joke, movements sensed sharper. The world slowed, and each reaction accelerated with uncanny clarity as she swamped the enormous foe. The girl showed the woman's power had awakened when she was only 4. For 18 years, the woman had lived with that gift, capable of seeing through most deceptions with ease. The woman's speech softened as she recalled the past. That day, during a dungeon outbreak, she had been torn away from the woman's parents amidst the turmoil. Creatures filled the metropolis, turning roads into war zones. The horizon burned while masses screamed and scattered in alarm. Savage creatures burst forward with fury, destroying everything in sight. The group's roars rang across the metropolis. A child observed in terror as forms dropped. Gore splattered across the ground as the creatures assaulted without restraint. Amid the turmoil, the girl was seized by one of the creatures. She fought as rubble smashed around her and terror gripped her throat tighter than any claw. Outside, the city's cries rang through the looming buildings. Screams filled the air while haze and damage grew block by block. Blasts rang out as an angry speech cut through the sound. Someone rushed in, swamped by anger and desperation. Kneeling in the aftermath, Sato shook with guilt. He doubted the man's strength, cursing himself for arriving too late to stop the harm. Driven by determination, the man glanced into the child's eyes. This time, the man swore with everything he had, no matter what, he would guard her. As the woman stood in the city's glow, memories rose. She recalled the man who shielded the woman's fought creatures solo and carried her to safety when her vision was failing. Sato softly questioned about the woman's parents. She replied with a faint grin, relieved they had endured, though the recollection had briefly swamped her. The man turned introspective. Though the man lived through it, he couldn't forget the helplessness, incapable to rescue anyone, including himself. His ideas came back to the boy, he unsuccessful. The shelter was overrun before the man even understood. Regret lingered. The woman's grin cut through the gloom. "I'm glad you're alive," the woman stated, and Sato, for once, sensed seen. But the recollection remained, and her gratitude grew her reason to become an explorer. Her chance was simple if she earned attention. Maybe the one who rescued her that day would see her once more and range out. Despite the strength she'd earned, the woman's trauma never left. Creatures still terrified the woman's, and in battle she couldn't bring herself to open her eyes. Sato understood the man too had sensed the same, and though he didn't say it aloud, he identified her strength through instinct. With a quiet firmness, the man proved her that her life was a gift not to be wasted. Somewhere, someone would be heartbroken if the woman dropped. Sato offered one faint grin, calling himself a sensitive old man. Watching the young feature's pain proved him of losses too deep to forget. Memories of the man's past struck with the present. He stood in the zone once more, easily hitting his club, as someone nearby doubted his odd aura. A known sense hit her. The man resembled someone from a remote recollection, concealed nearby. One girl watched the scene unfold. The woman ensured their conversation remained private, masking audio and visuals from prying eyes. Just as the woman was about to speak, awareness sparked. Her speech caught in her throat as Sato turned, the man's silhouette unmistakably tied to the past. A soldier neared with assurance, recorder in hand. Sato and the girl froze, uncertain why the group were abruptly being targeted. Dan, a seasoned freelance cameraman, stood confidently behind the man's enormous rig. He was called in the zone for filming Sina's dungeon ventures with expert accuracy. As newcomers assembled, the atmosphere brimmed with interest. Dan greeted them with collected ease, his keen look scanning the group. He refused broadcasting live, preferring cautiously edited video. Filming was one art to him, one demanding control and clarity. Inside the dungeon, Dan succeeded unshaken. Others were surprised the man recorded without units. The man stated he could fight if required, though rarely showed it. Sina introduced herself as a spear dancer and declared the woman's intention to shoot a music footage. Dan shared the man's frustrations with the industry's double standards. Despite the man's skill, one wrong word could jeopardize his freelance status. The man's anger boiled over as he criticized the leaders for their ignorance. The group's poor decisions often set undue burdens on the zone crew. The suited man, recalling a recent similar skill, nodded in unwilling agreement, his ideas trailing to a surprising feline encounter. Sina felt the veteran's fatigue. Dan, keen for one solution, begged the man to replace the absent rookie in the footage shoot. Standing steady, the man declined. The man's look made it plain he had no intention of participating. Dan rapidly backtracked from his abrupt appeal and tried to make it official, even giving payment and credit through Doom. Pro Sato remained stoic, the man's discomfort evident. Resolved, Dan suggested alternative solutions, concealing Sato's identity, substituting his features with CG, and spending from his own funds all to guard Sato's anonymity. The man's passion was plain. Dan announced he'd spend his whole budget on a partnership between Sato and Sina, driven by his filmmaker's pride. Moved by his determination, Sato silently accepted, since he could give his best alongside someone so committed. Sina rang the sentiment, resolved to deliver her finest performance for her viewers, without carrying back this time. Silently, Sato set his hand over his opening. Deep in idea as the others awaited his decision, he gripped the club steadily, reminding them it was just a rental, though the burden of the moment suggested otherwise. Outside, the batting cage's remaining rental time ticked away. Sina apologized, feeling the man's growing urgency. With no pause, she announced her intent to finish the dungeon in 25 minutes. The woman's confidence caught Sato by shock. Standing tall, Sato took the challenge. Payment meant nothing. The man take the lead, the others, surprised and impressed, rapidly gathered behind him. An enormous drone shaped like one mechanical fish albacore launched into action, deploying a full support order with defense, music, and live filming. As the battle music started, Sato and Sina advanced. The track pulsed through the air, lifting spirits. Creatures swarmed from all directions, but Sato met them straight, slamming through swarms of foes as rubble filled the air. Sina's eyes lit up. The force and turmoil were precisely what she'd wished for. Sato gave the woman the signal to go all out. Without pause, she released her sorcery and emerald barrier broke into crystal fragments. The real performance was simply beginning. Shards from the broke emerald barrier rained down like a tempest, forcing foes into retreat. Jointly, Sato and Sina connected with contact. He sensed uneasy yet committed to this odd, fresh timing. Jointly, the group fought through turmoil. Sato, though elder, matched Sina's elegance, moved by the woman's passion and determination. He understood how ridiculous. He glanced an old man hitting a club in sync with a girl's choreography, but he couldn't look away from her brilliance, lifting her into the air. Sato understood the man was inspired. People who burn with intent, the man could never ignore their light. Sina released another emerald barrier, raining crystal force across the arena as foes advanced. Sato observed her without a word, admiring her determination. Their win over Wave 3 ordered comments, reactions soaring. Audience were shocked by their velocity and skill, but the real challenge appeared. One looming demon boss appeared, dragging heavy gear behind it. An enormous dragon appeared from the darkness of the Incubus Palace, looming over buildings as it bellowed with ferocity. The dragon rushed with blinding velocity, tearing through the ground. Despite the unstable ground, it showed no sign of slowing, leaving one trail of devastation in its wake. Crushing the truck with both hands, the dragon advanced. The man moved forward, getting ready to confront it straight, while his companion hurried in behind him. As rubble flew, the girl launched into action. The woman braced herself mid-air, aiming to intercept the attack. The dragon fell from the assault. A person stood on its head, triumphant. A strong thrust pierced through barriers as a blinding shockwave erupted outward. The dragon bellowed in agony as fire and contact ripped through its body. The man held his position, unshaken amidst the turmoil and damage. Spectators observed in shock. Despite showing regular clothes, the man had endured the monster's counterattack, His composed steps rang as haze cleared around him. While explaining the creature's regeneration, he steadily moved through the arena. Channeling force into the man's club, he prepared his strike. The assembled fire spiraled around him. Onlookers burst in wonder as the man took aim at the monster's core. A swirling force burst into existence, tearing through the air as rubble twirled wildly around a glowing core. With no pause, Sato launched his retaliation. Muscles tensed and eyes fixed in. He delivered his signature technique with sheer accuracy. A thunderous blast rocked the field. Rubble and broke steel scattered as Sato and his ally stood beneath the fading shockwave, watching the turmoil unfold. Just as calmness settled, the dragon re-emerged, screeching through fire with unrelenting fury. Its claws lashed through the aftermath, reigniting the battle. Before it could attack once more, a swift combatant intercepted, blades clashing against the creature as tires screeched nearby. From behind the recorder, a sharp speech rang with praise. The commentator stood in wonder, his thrill spilling over the stream. Even now surprised by the notice, turned to the girl beside him. A quiet moment passed before the man shyly questioned her name. With a minor grin, the woman introduced herself as Kei. Her answer caught him by shock, but she held his look with composed assurance. While Sato tried to understand the meaning behind the woman's name, Kei shared a deeper idea, one laced with quiet resistance and self-worth. As units hovered overhead, the scene quieted. The group's brief moment finished with gratitude, leaving behind the marks of battle and mutual respect. Kei grinned brightly, her speech filled with gratitude as she considered on the battle. Sato replied with an uncommon relaxed look. Nearby, a minor beast watched the moment intently, its eyes next each movement without a word. Elsewhere, excited followers filled the comments with praise and donations, swamped by the performance and sensitive high-on stage. Sina rejoiced, the woman's skyrocketing followers. The incident had suddenly turned into an enormous digital sensation. A young woman steps into the corridor, full of force and casual confidence. The woman's arrival suggests familiarity, as if she has a close link to someone inside. Elsewhere, deep inside the Shinjuku Kabukisho dungeon, a glowing fountain marks the revival point. Late at night, few explorers remain. A man exchanges casual conversation about the area, noting how the fountain's design reminds him of one known place from Kansai. With trash bags in hand, a girl thanks the woman's companion for assisting clean up. The girl stares in shock at their haul's surprising worth. Her companion appears humble, but there is something silently impressive about how the man handles himself. Sato reflects silently, aware that the laws around labyrinths remain vague and open to exploitation. There are even now numerous unanswered questions. The man thinks about ownership of creatures, loot, or even the land itself. With no plain laws, people grab what they can, but the circumstances could workday immediately if regulations change. Despite the allure of valuable drops, Sato avoids violating the man's company's team job policy. A brief moment with a colleague reminds him how tightly his life is timed. Even small delays stand out. As the man walks past Shinjuku Terminal, Sato shrugs. To him, it's all simply junk that can't even cover the man's rent. In front of Shinjuku Terminal, a large donation box for dungeon disaster victims stands unnoticed by most passers-by. Sato approaches the box without a word. Though he sees little private worth in his loot, he figures donating it could serve a better intent. Just as he finishes, a concealment-clad girl abruptly appears. Having watched his quiet act, the woman questions whether it was wasteful. She overhears nearby onlookers misinterpreting the man's actions, assuming he discarded junk without care, gossiping sternly. Among them, one group of women complain aloud, oblivious of Sato's intent, labeling him a rude old man who should be reported. Outside the terminal, a minor group grows more agitated after seeing someone drop a Tokyo garbage bag into the donation box, mistaking it for trash. Security rushes in, asking witnesses for information. One person marks out that the man headed toward the terminal, urging them to catch him rapidly. But instead of seeking punishment, the elder official insists the man only wants to thank the person responsible, leaving others puzzled. Upon inspecting the bag, the group find it sparkling with uncommon gems and valuable objects, definitely not trash. Official explains it's not the initial time that man Sato has been silently donating enormous sums for years. A concealed champion among them, the group gradually begins to understand the man the group criticized is no regular bystander. Even the girls who gossip feel one bit guilty. With a slight blush, one girl admits it, elder guys like Sato can actually be kind of amazing. The coming morning, Sato slouches in the man's chair, features blank and weary. The night's events have plainly taken one toll. Inside, Hikari's mother notices the man's fatigue. Sato brushes it off, mentioning surprising turmoil but grateful for the day off. The man recalls almost being falsely accused while heading to meet Hikari. The pressure lingers as the man thinks back on the ordeal. Hikari bursts into the chamber clad like a cafe waitress, happily bringing drink. Her abrupt force catches Hikari by shock. Hikari, puzzled and slightly irritated, requests to know why Hikari met up with Sato without telling her. Sato looks surprised as well, learning that Hikari organized the outing herself. She merely desired to split a nice meal with him for a change. At the dinner desk, the three sit jointly. Hikari softly requests out her mother's constant absence, suggesting at her loneliness. With teary eyes, she explains she just desired to thank the woman's uncle Sato for always being there when she required him. Hikari's tearful features leaves Hikari and Sato momentarily shocked, their reactions caught between guilt and shock. Relieved the strain has passed, Hikari cheers inwardly, though the mention of a false accusation still lingers in the woman's ideas. Later, as they sit at the desk, Hikari requests more information. Sato steadily drinks the man's drink while she delivers the full story. Angry, Hikari defends the woman's uncle fiercely, declaring the accusation unthinkable. The man's long record of anonymous giving proves the man's character. Despite differing opinions, the group all rally behind him. Sato, silently grateful, reflects that family sharp, stubborn, and supportive is truly the best. While Sato silently grinned, Hikari scrolled through her mobile, stumbling upon a disturbing stream labeling him as an offender. A loading note appeared as she came next. A link noticed that Sato was in trouble, urging audience to act. Resolved, she clenched the woman's mobile. She chose to take action herself and guard him straight. As a fresh day started in the metropolis, a resolved speech announced a promise to guard Sato, a quiet and unassuming man living a quiet life. During dinner, the man's niece eagerly chatted on her mobile, making a desperate plea for assist. A call from work interrupted the moment. Elsewhere, his niece urged him, claiming he had possible to shine digital despite his modest view of himself. Answering the call, Sato found out there was another issue separate from a before case requiring his notice at once. A woman from the office, cigarette in hand, urgently informed him that Doom Productions' Kachidoki had specifically requested the man's aura. While sipping her drink, the girl refused roll, uneasy about the intentions behind the session. At home, a female colleague relayed harsh instructions from the top, telling him to kneel and beg to secure an agreement, something Sato found humiliating. Uncertain, the man verified whether refusing was even an option, suspecting he had little choice in the matter. With a weary grin, the woman implied the company's safety depended on him complying, or the group both be out. Later, his niece glanced on with worry as he got confirmation the session was set for Monday. Sato's mobile buzzed yet once more, startling him and drawing remarks from those at the desk about his abrupt fame sense swamped. The man excused himself for some air, despite the notice. The man found the force from work draining rather than flattering. The man's niece rose anxious, intrigued about the call. The woman's mother reassured the woman that Sato was dependable now and deserved her trust. Outside, Sato replied the call with a grave manner, addressing someone named Shiratama. A hearty meal sat untouched nearby. On the other end, one bright woman introduced herself as Swiren Shiratama. The woman apologized sincerely, explaining an office gossip involving a fight. Sato recalled the name Daki and understood it must have been Kachidoki's old explorer alias from years ago. On the other end of the line, Swiren whispered one noticed Kachidoki was risky. The woman's companions glanced uneasy at the mention of him. She clarified the man's odd philosophy, picking fights initial to form friendships. Sato was baffled by the crude logic. Apparently, Kachidoki dragged anyone the man disliked into dungeon duels. Sato questioned how such primitive behavior even now existed in current times. According to office rumors, Kachidoki's power stemmed from blackmail and high-ranking connections, allowing him to act without consequence. Reading a note Sato considered on the night the man been falsely accused of groping, likely the result of Kachidoki's influence. Across the desk, Swiren showed worry and offered to contact higher-ups or even assist with the job, but Sato refused, not wanting to endanger the woman's too. Still, Swiren mumbled in annoyance, jealous that he had by then succeeded with someone named Sina before. Sato understood he couldn't spare to lose the man's job. Changing careers wasn't realistic anymore. Especially with no resume prepared, he clarified the man's circumstances, summoned by Kachidoki and likely headed into a dungeon. Swiren, shocked, tried to interrupt as words started to sink in. In a quiet cafe, Sato considered cynically on the nature of business, an endless cycle of old men sharing unreasonable requests, masking weakness with arrogance. The man concluded that salespeople, including himself, were little more than scum. His harsh manner shocked the girls at the coming desk. Despite the rant, Swearin still wanted to recommend him for future work, but he courteously questioned her not to mention his name. The man grinned faintly, admitting that promotions would only bring him worthless responsibilities and lower pay. Swearin replied kindly about Senna, though the group never met outside work. Sato muttered, lamenting society's grim world. Swearin understood who might be behind an abrupt note. The sender stated to have met her team the night before and gained a business card to contact her. Elsewhere, Sato reached a decision. With the encounter scheduled for Monday, he chose not to pause and intended to determination things the old-fashioned way. At Shinjuku Terminal, two suspicious men stood guard. Sato speculated one carried a blade in a guitar case, the other a hammer concealed in the man's jacket. Arriving sharply at 7, Sato saw the girls anxiously getting ready for emergencies. Just as the man collected himself, a man neared from behind, shouting an accusation signaling the confrontation's beginning. A man abruptly grabbed Sato and pushed something keen into his back, forcing him to trail without resistance. He was led through dim alleyways by a group of intimidating figures, keeping the man's look composed. Despite the risk, Sato showed a concealed smirk. He had anticipated everything and was completely prepared. A quiet lane stopped by cones hid a forbidden route. The faint rumble behind the garbage bag suggested it something abnormal stirring below. 3 men snuck past the blockade, the group's steps trained. The narrow back streets led to one unnoticed dungeon arrival, one mysterious even to the guild. Inside, one karaoke building, the group dragged Sato toward the deeper levels. It was no casual outing. The group's faces were grave. Sato understood the group's true intent. The man was led into one ruined chamber. One man waited solo, seated steadily, as if expecting him. The seated man stood. Sharing the man's motive, the man offered Sato the very partnership he once declined. Clad boldly, a sharp man named Daki Kinya issued an open challenge, declaring an one-on-one showdown as if it were an epic incident. Irritated by mockery, his partner defended his digital attention, citing a large follower count from his days as a broadcaster. As strain escalated, past controversies were exposed: fraud, leadership abuse, and betrayal. With no notice, a punch connected squarely on Sato's features. The man was ordered crashing across the chamber. The provocation had succeeded, but not to the extent wished for. Still recovering, Sato studied the circumstances steadily. All he required now was a confession to total the man's trap. Sato steadily showed out the aggressor's violent behavior, urging restraint despite the growing hostility in the chamber. The reply was harsh. His collected demeanor only fed Daki's annoyance, who voiced his disdain for Sato's passive manner. Despite being underestimated, Sato had proven surprisingly resilient, which solely added to the strain between them. Others started taunting him, ridiculing how readily he was being overpowered after once standing tall in their office. Violence escalated, blows connected hard across Sato's features and body, yet he remained on his feet, silently enduring the pain. Grabbing Sato by the collar, Daki threw an insult, comparing him to a monster in disguise. The man's hatred boiling over, Sato remained unshaken. Even under danger, his look betrayed no terror, only a quiet awareness. Fire burst as Daki summoned the man's weapon. With a burning blade in hand, he required a duel, igniting strain in the chamber. Standing steadily, Sato rejected the offer with no pause. The challenge was met with resistance, not submission. Anger erupted. With his skill activated, Doki leapt forward, declaring his lethal intent without pity. An overwhelming blast of water sorcery broke the chamber, dousing fire and flattening rubble. Sato stood unharmed, evidence assembled in total. A woman appeared amid the turmoil, confident, armed, and well-informed. Her arrival exposed Daki's true identity. An offender acts with no pause. Caught by shock, Daki cried in alarm. His outburst verified their suspicions, while Sato remained composed, sharing his meticulous setup. With the man's privileges crumbling, Doki understood that even dungeon lawlessness had limits. Open exposure meant effects the man could no longer avoid. Desperate excuses came next, but the woman saw through the lies. No defense could undo what had by then been saw. A quiet girl moved forward, sharing herself. Suddenly her composed arrival rose awareness and uncertainty from those present. With a swift transformation, she unveiled the woman's true identity: spear dancer. Senna, once portrayed as a false victim in the press. Those responsible panicked, realizing they had misjudged the woman's totally and defeated into an irreversible trap. Sato silently considered on the twist. Even the man had been oblivious of her dual role, now grateful for her timely role. Ultimately, the unknown was plain. Explorers often used avatars, but these women bore hitting resemblance to their real selves. As strain settled, the group shifted focus. Sato remained quiet while the others observed him with doubt, getting ready for what came coming. Abruptly, the man's body expanded with power awareness hit. The man's identity as the Shinjuku batter was no longer a private. A karaoke bar stood at the edge of one quiet street, its bright lights hiding a far stranger world within. Kiri appeared from the building, adjusting the man's tight suit. His breath heavy, years of age weighed on him more than any dungeon creature ever had. Elsewhere, 3 explorers voiced the group's doubts. The group couldn't believe someone like Ki was the true powerhouse behind the scenes. With composed determination, Ki clenched the man's fist. He moved forward, prepared to feature a challenge straight, no tricks. The man's rival wavered, realizing too late who he had provoked. Steadily removed his necktie, addressing his challenger with a steady look. He proved him that facing conflict straight meant forging respect through strength. The women nearby verified the man's opponent's bold claim. The group's agreement left no chamber for denial as the man anxiously tried to backpedal. Pushed about the man's missing weapon, Kay replied plainly, the man didn't need a club. The man had no use for apps. With collected confidence, Kay fixed the man's suit. The man's bare hands, hardened by innumerable unseen battles, would be sufficient. Fresh challengers moved in, ridiculing him. Still, Key stood undeterred. He challenged them all at once with no pause. One attacker rushed ahead, releasing his strongest skill without carrying back. Before the strike could land, Kiri's reply was instant. His fist smashed into the attacker mid-technique, cutting off his method. The man remained collected, dismissing their flair for speeches. Action, not boasting, was what mattered in combat. The foe fell, hardly conscious, while Ki stood untouched. The ground cracked beneath the man's overwhelming force. Observers gazed in shock. What the group saw wasn't martial arts. It was sheer power taken to an entirely different rank. Aneth, their rival, moved forward, armed with assurance and a large customized weapon. Ki, unshaken, called him coming. The weapon released one freezing mist designed to immobilize. It targeted Kai's physical edge by halting movement entirely. But Ki closed the gap before the attack grew active. The man's punch broke both the weapon and the enemy's guard. The man fell beside the man's broken gear. Ki stood over him steadily, reminding them all the man cautioned them beforehand. Each in turn, resistance waned. Those left could only beg or flee, smashed not simply by strength but terror. Ki clarified the man's strength came from casual training. Inspired by his sister, the man stated to be nothing more than an amateur. Onlookers couldn't skin the group's wonder. They compared the man's power to fiction, calling it overwhelming outside high-class competition levels. With his shirt undone and position composed, Ki questioned his rival what he intended to do. Coming, the foe bellowed, blade igniting. The foe rushed, releasing a flaming weapon method aimed straight at Katie's chest. Convinced no weaponless man could survive such an attack, he cried his final technique, demanding K be reduced to ashes. With a swift movement, Ki caught the flaming blade mid-strike. Spectators froze. Their expressions a combine of wonder and shock. He inspected the heat swirling in the man's hands, steadily explaining that fire was intangible unless given form. By shaping it, the attacker had made it vulnerable. Ki neutralized the skill effortlessly, demonstrating total control over the force. The man showed the method was something he read in a manga called The Circular Block, what was once fiction. The man made world thinking silently. Ki envisioned one simple line. With it, the man turned an abstract idea into relentless force. K launched one blazing fastball with overwhelming force, the contact ripping through the zone like a cannon shot. Despite the blow, the rival appeared holding twin swords, releasing a final desperate strike before collapsing. The girls watched in shocked quiet. Ki verified the opponent's avatar had vanished, leaving behind solely fading traces. With composed authority, Ki turned to his allies, prepared to technique toward the designated respawn point. A bright flash burst in the void, signaling the activation of the dungeon's resurrection order. The light sphere drifted down into one tranquil chamber with a fountain designated as the official revival point for explorers. Sato appeared from the glowing water, disoriented but alive. The order had restored him after the man's death deep within the labyrinth. Each explorer operated through a sorcery-forged avatar, a physical double woven from mana that served as their aura inside the dungeon. When one avatar was destroyed, the soul came back to the fountain, unharmed. The body outside remained untouched by death. A suited man verified Sato's condition, relieved that no important issues had occurred during the revival process. Despite being alive, Sato behaved like one child, temporary trauma from the resurrection, anticipated to fade in a few days. Sato and 2 others were restrained. A confident woman clarified the group would be left to Dom Pro's discretion for punishment. The man in glasses assessed the effects. The company confronted strong scrutiny due to repeated misconduct under their view. To contain the backlash, internal cleanup started. The assignment of handling victims and penalizing offenders was now completely delegated. One of the offenders, sweating anxiously, begged for the man's footage to be deleted and offered an apology for past misconduct. Without pause, the man's account was terminated. Alarm took hold as he understood his whole stream had been permanently banned. Dropping to the man's knees, he fell in despair. With the man's digital identity erased, he muttered that his life was over. The man in glasses noted the irony of the downfall, though others had likely by then reported the misconduct to the guild. Standing beside the defeated, the women verified the ban was final. Redemption as one broadcaster was no longer potential. While thinking on before events, the suited man recalled Hikari's reaction when misconduct was mentioned. One hint of awareness surfaced. He briefly weighed a link but rejected it. After all, the woman appeared to be a normal, bright girl outside. The girls regrouped and invited Sato to join them. Spirits lifted as the group talked about grabbing food after the operation. As the group neared the drop-off point, one of the girls reviewed if Sato would be attending the post-operation celebration. Grinning softly, Sato refused the invitation. The girls thanked him kindly, the group's expressions filled with gratitude and fondness. When imagining one group meal, Sato preferred to sit apart and suggested using smartphones to talk, drawing puzzled looks. He grinned courteously, explaining that being treated like a sugar daddy wasn't appealing to him, a comment that gained a protest. Later, the group moved through one narrow lane. Sato trailed silently behind, while the others chatted with growing thrill. One of the girls, accompanied by a floating beast, questioned to join the after-party, promising mischief and force if permitted. Elsewhere, a different girl teasingly commented on the group's awkwardness, masking sincerity behind playful banter and half-grave remarks. One of the girls confessed she and her friends were the reason Mamoru's stream got banned, though they continued it private from Sato. Claiming justice as a motive, the woman justified the group's actions, though ironically using logic similar to Mamoru's own behavior. Later that evening, the group assembled at a local diner, the glow of metropolis lights thinking the composed after their chaotic day. Inside, the atmosphere was warm and relaxed. Laughter and casual talk filled the air as the group shared drinks and stories playfully. One girl called Sato ridiculously typical. The man demanded he was just a plain salaryman, earning another round of teasing. The girl doubted Sato's claim of being regular, pointing out that no regular salaryman secretly livestreams. Caught by shock, Sato glanced puzzled as others in the CACA face started to stare, his concealed activities accidentally exposed.